yoga is much more than just a workout. It is a spiritual awakening.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
I'm already spiritually awakened.
Really? How so?
I do meditation. I do. I focus on frequency and vibration, various crystals, depending on the frequency and vibration. And
We're speaking to the right man.
You already practice yoga.
I do the chakras, and I know. Yeah, sure.
His Vishuddha chakra is like all clear. Amazing. Okay, so that being said, what are some foods that we can consume that raise our vibrations?
Anything clean. So I eat. I believe in Gaia, which is Mother Nature, of course. Anything pure, which is. I do eat meat, but I eat clean meat.
What is clean meat?
Well, clean meat. You may not like this, but it's true. We're part of it. We're all connected. So, including animals. So, I do believe in eating clean meat for protein, and I actually, you don't like this, so I'll stay away from it. But
No, I want to hear it. This is what I want to talk to you about.
You sure you want to hear
I
this?
want to hear it. Come here.
You might not agree with my opinion.
This is why we need to have this discussion.
Okay. I grew up as a kid crabbing and fishing in Maryland. I also grew up on a farm with chickens, animals, hunting, okay? And we used it for sustenance. We didn't have a lot of money. So we did it, and instead of buying meat in the grocery store, where you had no idea where it was coming from and how humane it was, instead I tracked, learned, understood the behavior, and have a spiritual connection with the animals on my farm. I know where they come from. I know what they eat. I know everything about them. And
What are they thinking when they're being killed, though?
what are they thinking? Well, I couldn't tell you what they're thinking, but I know we're all part of the same thing. So the first thing I say is, when I do harvest them, is what I like to say.
Well, kill them.
Nice. Yeah, yes, and we could be killed too.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm saying is, it's a circle of life. And
Could I harvest
we're
you?
part of this. Could you harvest me?
I understand what you're saying, but I have a question. Is there a compassionate way to kill an animal so that we don't?
And this is why I get a little bit irritated, because the people who have never done it don't understand. When I'm tracking these animals, and I'm spending an immense amount of hours in the cold and studying them and listening, and I understand. I'm watching the birds and the bees and the animals and the critters. I understand where they're coming from. The first thing I do is I get down and I pray to it, and I thank Mother Nature and Gaia for its spiritual energy, and I'm taking it as sustenance for me and my 3 young children, and that I pray that I bless it, and I say thank you for its sustenance. I'll go into the nourishment of my children, and you will not be forgotten. And then I get down and I touch it and hold it. And this is hard for people to understand, is that I will say to them, thank you, and much respect to them. And I thank you for every ounce of meat that comes from you. You will not be forgotten, and you will be carrying on the circle of life to me and my children. To me, that's much more natural than going to the store and buying a chunk of meat that you have no idea where it's from. I spend countless hours doing that, and I have the utmost amount of respect for those kind of creatures, and more so, in my opinion, than a lot of people that would just say and live in the cities and high rises that have no connection to the earth, have no connection to the ground. And I will say this too, is that when it comes to vegan, I should say, is that I've seen countless critters, mice, foxes, rabbits, squirrels that are slaughtered, and I see the seagulls follow the tractors, because there's mass amounts of devastation from animals. Whenever you grow food like tofu or anything like that for vegetarians, an incredible amount of creatures are slaughtered.
So 2 things. It sounds to me like you're very concerned with animals. You love them. That is why you take the extra step to pray over them, to make sure.
I live off the land.
Living off the land, right.
I live off the land. I'm connected
Yes.
spiritually
Right.
to the and
Yes.
I don't disassociate myself
So,
from the land.
so that being said, that's, I think a better way of doing things than buying from factory farmed animals. However, those animals, those individuals that are going through the experience of having their throat slit, or however you're killing them, are having an experience of having their lives and existence taken from them for a purpose that's unnecessary for your survival. You don't need to eat them to survive, because you can get nutrients and sustenance from a plant-based diet.
That's true, but not, well, like I said, we're all, in my opinion, and this is where we're going to differ, is that we're all connected, interconnected.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And then whether it's plant life or animal life. And as much as I understand what you're trying to say, I would say that unless you went out and did the things I do, and not just, let's say, venison, right? But whether it's birds or waterfowl or crabs, I come from Maryland, right? Or fish or oysters or anything like that, right? That we are all part of this Gaia. We're all part spiritually connected, right? And it's kind of to me, it's a little bit unbecoming to think that we're separated from this earth. Because I show, and as most hunters I know, show the immense amount of respect. And when I mean respect, I mean living it, learning it, breathing it, right?
But how do you want to be respected? You wouldn't want somebody saying, I respect you so much, we're connected, let me take your life and eat you because I like the taste, right? You wouldn't want that.
If an animal was starving and it came after me, I see sharks attack humans all the time, and they're not doing it to be mean.
Yeah, but chicken, cows, pigs don't do those things. What were you going to say?
I was gonna say, and even
I could tell you more nuances about the animals. I guarantee that you possibly could, both of you, together.
Maybe.
you know, I'm not
You could criticize me, okay?
I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but I would say morally, no matter how good you take care of them, it's kind of messed up leading them down this life to then slaughter them when they don't know it.
To betray
And
them.
Even if they do know it, that's even more miserable for them.
I abhor humans that put them in cages and sit there for slaughter. To me, that is unnatural. It's against everything spiritually that I believe in Gaia, right? And our connection to spiritual. And and that's the difficult thing you're trying to understand is that I have a connection in prayer and a substance and a belief. I believe them or me and them one the same. When I pass away, I'm not going to be in a coffin. I'm going to go on earth.
Yeah, me
Humans
too.
are one of the only people that don't respect other creatures on this earth by harvesting their dead. And I'll be going into this earth, hopefully for the rest of this earth.
One more thing, to your second point about the tofu fields or growing soy, do you know where most of plant crops are fed to and all the mice and the insects, what those lands are actually cleared for?
Well,
It's not for the 2% of
there's
vegans.
1,000 different things it can go for.
No, it's for animal agriculture. It's to feed the 80+ billion animals that we breed into
And mostly
existence to kill.
GMOs. You know,
Well,
a lot
but-
of GMOs that go into our animals, which are poison, right? Whether it's Monsanto or
Yeah,
anything.
that people are eating. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the plants, crop farming, we can actually do plant farming much better for sure. But the same old animal agriculture practices aren't gonna get better. The problem is that when you have 80 billion mouths to feed, you have to clear those lands. We are taking the Amazon rainforest and disseminating it
I'd ask
for
you-
cattle grazing.
I would turn the tables a little bit and ask you, do you guys grow your own food?
You do. I don't.
Yeah.
To an extent because I do.
No.
I can feed my family not only water purification that I do for myself, but also energy, solar, which I use as a generator, but also food that for my children, my small babies with chickens, right? And venison stuff. So you're talking, and this is the misnomer. A lot of times when you ask people on the street like this, and you think about hunters, you think they just like to kill things, and it's very, very disingenuous. There's a lot of people that are very, very spiritual, in touch with the earth and the creatures, and have the utmost respect to the point that we get down and touch them and pray to them. I mean, with our souls. And I mean, I have an innate connection with them, and a lot of hunters really do. So I think there's a different perspective here that can go both ways. I understand and appreciate the perspective you guys are giving, but I think there's also two ways you can look at this too.
Could you have the utmost respect for them and not take their lives? Could you survive without taking their lives?
Could I survive? Yes. But to me, we're also part of this earth, and part of this earth is understanding, respecting, and being part of that cycle. I understand from a practical perspective, like, could I live and just go to the store and buy stuff? Of course I could.
Local farmers market?
Of course, and which I do. But I'd prefer to grow my own food, grow my own, I make my own beer. I'm self-sufficient. And to me, I'm independent, but I'm also want to be part of this Gaia.
Do you ever feel bad for the animal you're about to kill? Like, is there a chicken that you're like, oh, I kind of like you, like you're super sweet?
Well, of course, but I think what I do is I also just get down and show you how much of a value you have. I'm talking a deep, deep sense and
They trust you. They love you. They trust you, and then you take their lives.
Well, I think it's a little bit because I deal with them on a personal level too. I guarantee, since you don't do your own food, much more than you probably do. Okay?
I'm with farm animals all the time.
Oh, okay.
the time.
Do you harvest them?
I
Do you not-
rescue them
do you
from
not-
situations that you're describing.
well, that rescue them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I go into factory farm slaughterhouses.
And that's fine.
Weekly,
Those
yeah.
are different things. We're talking two.
I've been to homesteads. I've been to homesteads as well. It's the killing, the act of killing. It's not. There's no. For me, it's like you're seeing the life, the soul leave an individual's body. For me, whether you're in a slaughterhouse or a homestead, it's still the act of killing that I find to be something I wouldn't want done to me. So I wouldn't say it's okay to do it to others.
When I'm looking into the eyes of a creature that's still breathing its last breaths, and I'm sitting down, I'm holding my chest and my heart, I'm touching it. I'm looking, I'm thanking for every little morsel of that food that's going to go into the sustenance of my young children. And when we sit down to dinner, we say a prayer in respect to that animal.
Yeah,
right?
but did that animal tell you, oh, okay, it's okay now, take my life?
No, well, of course not. But any animal. It's not. We're just talking about deer. So, are we going to value human life based off its appearance, its cuteness level? Cuteness
No.
But I don't think.
Okay. We can go down a ladder and say, how about flies? Do you ever swat a fly?
I think. Well,
Try
actually,
not to.
Mosquitoes on your leg.
Yeah. Well, I would say
let's be
parasites.
consistent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, parasites. So if something's hurting me, or attacking me, I will swipe it.
At what level are we going to talk about? Is it,
Personally,
so
and with not lying, in all truth, I don't, and I don't swat mosquitoes.
I do.
Because I'm a yogi, I sit through
I
it.
think that's horrible.
But
I think that's terrible because that feeling of that mosquito it was just trying to nourish itself for blood, and it's just trying
I
to.
didn't
feed
say I
itself.
kill it. I just swipe them away.
Oh, so you've never like actually squished it.
Not purposefully. No. I'm probably too slow to get them anyway. But
I'm getting a little semantics here, but you understand what
I get what you're
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
But the system that we have in place of like literally breeding life into existence to take it, to set their expiration date, to take it, that is not nature. That is not the cycle of life, and it's not nature because we don't need to do it to survive. We do it because we like the taste and the convenience of it.
And the thing that I was going to say is that, for example, you say it's not exactly needed to sustain life eating meat. So what do you think on the psychology research done on not like the bigger farms and stuff, but like what you're talking about the suicide rates of farmers who kill their own animals because it's so much on them?
Hold this for 1 second.
Suicide rates of farmers.
Yeah.
You're speaking of something I can't honestly tell you I know much about. And I think it's disingenuous for anybody to speak about something that they don't have information about. So I'd prefer to refrain from answering your question because I'm not aware of suicide rates of that. So
Okay. Well,
otherwise I'm lying.
I respect that.
Yeah, truthfulness is, and you're asking a question. You want honesty and truthfulness. I'm going to give it to you. You may not like it, but I'm going to give you my honesty.
Well, that's what's
And
so beautiful
that's
about.
important too.
Yeah.
I respect that, and I can respect that, and we can't have a proper conversation without doing that.
I'm going to go have a beer. My name is Greg. It's
Thank
very
you,
nice
Greg.
talking to you. I appreciate your
Very nice
opinions
talking to
and I
you.
respect it.
Yeah.
And hopefully respect goes both ways. You may not agree with it.
Absolutely.
but-
and
but-
that's what's
but-
good about this country is that we can talk it
I
out.
agree. I agree.
You know what I mean?
I think that it's a beautiful thing that you meditate, that you're spiritual, that you can recognize the connection between all living beings. But I do challenge you to look at how that connection truly exists and how what we do unto others ultimately comes back to
I
us.
respect that. I also would ask you in return to also not automatically dismiss what I might be saying.
My whole thing is if somebody prayed over you and we're going to take your life, I would try to save you because I don't think it's our decision to play God and to choose who lives and who should die.
It's not playing God. God is an internal. I'm also Buddhist.
Okay.
And Buddhist is also something that believes it's not a religion. Buddhist is also believing in the spiritual innate value of us and connected to the person.
A lot of
So-
Buddhists don't eat meat.
And I love what you guys are doing, and I don't mean this to be disparaging. Honestly, from my heart. But give it some years, and learn, and your opinions may change with more research.
been a
That's that's
decade.
very fair position.
It's been a
I say
decade
that.
for me,
My,
yeah.
My position when I was probably about your age was probably drastically different too. And that's fair. It's called wisdom. And I'm not disparaging. I just say when you learn and grow and understand things from a deeper understanding of perspective, with
Wisdom to
people.
me is looking at things from other point of views and perspectives, and that's why when I put myself in the position of the animals and I hear somebody like you, a nice, good person that means well, taking their lives from them, I don't want my position to change on that.
Part of them is me.
Yeah.
I am made of the same animals. We are all the cycle of life. This is what you understand.
We
Right.
come from the same
So
place.
the difference I have is that you're separating and disseminating humans from the rest of nature, right? And I really believe that you're doing that. And I think that's disingenuous to Gaia. We are all one and the same. There's nothing more spiritual to me than living amongst you have no idea what I've done to like in nature, whether it's oysters or fish or diving or crabs. I'm talking about meat, but also plants. I grow
We
my
should let
I can
God's
tell you-
creatures
I can tell you
live.
more about plant life than you could possibly understand, whether it's acidic levels or pH levels in the soil, and understand the nutrients and
Putting
replenish.
those high vibe foods in our bodies, not the death, the violence. Because when animals die, they have high levels of cortisol, which actually then goes into our bodies. The violence goes into our bodies. Our violence goes into our bodies.
Violence is.
Yes, well, I mean, it is violent to kill, right?
Well, it's disingenuous to say I'm going to punch you in the face, which is violence. Okay, you're nourishing and hunting. All animals do. When I'm sitting there, let me tell you.
Slitting a throat, not violent?
No. Let me tell you. When I'm sitting there, I can't tell you how many animals I see attack, slaughter, and kill one another, in vicious ways. Whether it's skunks or foxes or eagles.
You could recognize that that's wrong, right? Because you have a moral compass.
That a hawk is feeding on a mice.
Not
No,
saying
but
that.
we shouldn't act like animals.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, why are we so much different than a hawk feeding on a venison, whereas a hawk feeds on a mice?
Because humans are omnivores and those animals are carnivores.
That's where we're going to disagree.
We're omnivores.
No, we're omnivores, being both meat and plants.
You can
Yeah,
eat meat
from
and plants.
the beginning of time.
Well, look at our closest
relatives.
relatives are herbivores, are chimpanzees, and chimps. They also have canines, but they don't eat other animals. The strongest animals in the world are elephants, gorillas, and hippos, and they eat plants. They're vegan.
And also the fattest. And in me, I'm in pretty freaking good shape. At 53 was a six-pack, and I'm telling you right now, okay, every animal that eats pure like carbs is fat.
Not every meat eater looks like you. I'll tell you that.
Or wolf that eats meat, right, is in shape and carnivore.
A gorilla might be the biggest, strongest one
I'll
of
leave
them
it
all.
like this. I'm like this, and it's because I harvest my own meat. I'll be damned if I'm going to buy it strapped in plastic from a goddamn grocery store, okay? But I will sit there, and I will sit for days on end in freezing temperatures, loving and respecting the creature, and saying a prayer for it. I'll tell you right now, I'll give you a quick story if you want to hear it. I remember one time you're not going to like it, but I used bow, which is extraordinarily difficult. It's not a gunshot from 200 yards away.
Sounds like something I would not want to die by, but yes, continue.
I don't think any of us would want to die by anything,
Oh.
cancer or anything.
Oh.
Well, part of life is not wanting to die.
Yes.
Well, that's why we have innate responses to anything, whether it's human or animals. right?
Prematurely, we don't want to die prematurely, and we shouldn't be killed prematurely if we don't need to be, right? Like, you just said it right there. Nobody wants to die.
Well, of course, but that's part of the life cycle. Death is as much as part of birth.
Right.
You do not live without the concept of death.
Yes. But we don't need to take life prematurely, right? If we don't need to for survival.
Well, yeah, but you could say the same thing in times of war. Is it necessary to attack the Nazis in World War II? Or any war? And now if you say no, that's fine. But in self-defense, is there any time that someone's breaking your house and attacking my 3 babies in the crib? Am I allowed to kill him?
I don't
You
think
bring up
that
a-
we're slaughtering the animals in self-defense, though.
Yeah.
We're not getting philosophy. We're going to get deep. Because there are times, if you have children, and maybe you get a little older, and they're sitting in a crib and somebody comes in to stab them, and you have an option of shooting them, you will do it without a heartbeat, as you should. Now, you're taking prematurely a life.
Yeah, but the difference is the animals we eat are the kindest,
I know it's not
most
defense for an animal.
defenseless animals. Right. It's two completely different things.
Taking life is also part of the cycle. Taking of death is also part of the cycle of life, for good or bad or indifferent. There are parts of that. So what I'm saying is that, yes,
I certainly think that death is a part of that cycle, but I think that taking is kind of greedy. Yeah.
Well, do you not think does plant life not? To me, okay, to me, I also believe that there is spirituality in plant life. I think that's very greedy for you to eat. I honestly believe that.
Do you believe plants feel pain?
Not necessarily in a cerebral same way as animals would,
Okay.
but I do believe that they're living. They do listen to noise. They understand frequency and vibration. They understand CO2. Whether you talk them, which is exerting the CO2, or frequency and vibrations, yes, it does bring. So they're a living organism.
Okay, so I have to say this in rebuttal. If I eat this beautiful little puppy, it's gone. But if this was an apple tree and I took one of the hundreds of apples on it, it can still regenerate and sustain and continue to live.
If you had no plant life, and if you had 3 little children, now again, I don't know if you have any children, it's not my business, but if you did, your perspective's going to change a little bit, because when you see your starving own kids, okay, and it happens across the world, okay, maybe not here in Delray, but there are places in the world that does happen, okay, and you see your children starving to death. I hate to say this, but that puppy might look a little bit more of an opportunity to feed your children.
So you
to
bring up a
sustain.
survival situation,
That's a survival
yeah,
situation.
which is a completely different
So-
moral
so what-
justification. So when we also talk about plants,
Do you think
if we
that
want to
if-
be plant activists, the animals eat the most amount of plant crops grown, so you can reduce plant casualties by actually going vegan, because you're not eating the animals that ate all those plants, you're just going directly to the plant source, if that makes sense.
Yes and no. I mean,
80 billion animals, 80 billion mouths to feed. They're consuming the vast majority of crops that are grown, predominantly soy.
let me back up for a second. When you say talk about feeding vegans, I know this because I've seen it firsthand. I have a 90-acre farm, okay, from Maryland. It's all organic, okay. But when you see a farmer come in, I will say this: the mass amount of slaughter of snakes and critters and frogs is immense. Okay, to till the land, to seed it, and I see the seagulls coming in just picking the corpses of these thousands of little creatures, whether it's worms or insects or anything like that. I see it.
What crops are they harvesting?
What crops are they harvesting? Well, typically rye, but it rotates. Crop rotation is very important to keep the nutrients proper, depending on the type of crop, you know. But typically it's going to be rye, you know.
So you bring up a great point. We also agree that plant farming could be improved. And I think that's a really important point to note.
You're talking to somebody that grows his own
Yeah.
stuff from seed
Yeah.
organically.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right.
You're talking to somebody that has a little perspective of
Yeah.
everything.
So the beauty of this is that
I grow
plant.
more beer, grow more
Yeah.
hops. I can tell you everything
Yeah.
about it.
So the
I
you
guarantee,
know.
no offense to each you, I guarantee I could show you and teach you things about growing plant life as much as harvesting.
The beauty of it is that
I don't think I know it all, but I am just trying to share my perspective.
I get a lot of this top-down discussion, such as this, and I'm not trying to belittle you, but it's a little bit of a condescending thing. Like, let's talk to the person on the street that doesn't really know the truth about stuff. Until you guys grow up and actually start doing things for yourself, and you have to sustain yourself and your family, and understand the world, understand plant life, and understand animal life, and how we're all one and we're all connected on a spiritual, deep sense, right? When it comes to chakras, maybe your perspective will change and won't be as so judgmental, I should say.
I truly.
Very judgmental, I'll say.
I'm sorry that
I
you
love
feel.
this earth. You have no
Yeah,
idea
I'm
what I
sorry
can
that
do
you.
and understand.
I'm sorry that you feel judged. I think simply having a.
It sounds a little bit like it. We're on camera and with a microphone.
Well, I think simply having an open conversation where you can share your perspective and we can share ours. I think it's a beautiful
and
thing.
that's why I was just saying, I respect you guys' opinion. I also ask it goes mutual.
Yeah. However, when we do look into spirituality and being connected, I truly hope next time you're about to take the life of another being that you do consider their perspective as opposed to just yours, because it is not survival.
Fair enough. And I'm also in the county.
Thank you.
Never ever squat.